Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, a weekly show recorded live every Friday, where we recap the top events of the week and talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. Let's get started.
Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions.
Well, hello. Welcome everybody to Good for Bitcoin. As you heard, it is a weekly show we do live every Friday. Very excited to get into all the things that happened this week because there is so much news this week, both internally at Trust Machines, but also with Stacks and Bitcoin in general. Want to throw it over to Longstreet first. Longstreet, happy Friday, sir.
GM Brandon, happy Friday, man. I'm happy to be here. There is indeed a lot that's good for Bitcoin. You know, I know we don't like to focus on price, but I'm not going to lie. It feels good when the price is good.
Yeah, vibes are up overall. It feels like in the community, price is up on this Friday. So community's having a better day today, I guess, than they have been.
That's good vibes
more frequently. And Kate, happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you both.
How was your week?
It's been a good week. Honestly, sometimes, you look back and you're like, was it a good vibes week, bad vibes week? And overall, just great vibes all around.
Yeah, we might need to, we haven't pulled up the, what is it, like the fear and greed index in a while. I wonder what it's at today. I feel like it's probably a little higher than it normally is. We'll have to check that in a little bit once I have time to check. But we have so much to get into. So Sean, I'd love to start with your Leather Lounge that you hosted yesterday with Publius and WoBuddy on cbBTC.
Yeah, yesterday was another fascinating show. I love being able to interview the fascinating builders in this space. So as you mentioned, they are focusing on this convergence of AI and Bitcoin. And their premise is that Bitcoin is going to be the preferred currency for AI, specifically cbBTC, which we are expecting in 4 weeks after Nakamoto. So maybe, I don't know, I'm guessing maybe 6 weeks or so. Maybe we can take some bets on it. And so they have formed a working group. They meet every Thursday morning. And they are building out what's called the Crew AI Agent Framework. And this allows AI agents to form crews and to work together to accomplish basically anything that a human can accomplish with a Stacks wallet. They had some really good analogies, like read versus read and write controls. So at the most basic things, basic level, they can write AI agents to check a balance, analyze a smart contract, and even in a more complex way, they can develop agents with backstories, specializations. They can form crews and give some AI agents some additional skill sets to have some sort of hierarchy. And these agents can work together, and you can do more advanced things like balance a portfolio, or create a token company for a token, or maybe do arbitrage. So where you have the crews analyze what's happening on Bitflow, Velar, Alex, Arcadico, and execute arbitrage trades if there's a possibility. So yeah, there was a lot of good conversation on that. And then just context, kind of big picture, right now there's 8 billion people on the planet. What's crypto and Web3 going to look like when there are 8 billion AI crews responsible for over 99% of transactions on Bitcoin? So we talked about centralized AI versus open source AI. It was a wide-ranging conversation, pretty dense and fast, because those guys, they're kind of efficient, right? They just it was every minute there was something fascinating happen. And it's live now. We've got the episode posted on the podcast on Spotify now.
That's amazing. Yeah. So both this show and Leather Lounge are on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. We are syndicating across a few different platforms. So very exciting stuff. And Publius and WoBuddy, they have been in the space for a very long time. Very, very knowledgeable guys. So really cool to get to hear from them. And yeah, I know. I just in general, I feel like this topic of like AI integrating with blockchain is it's just something that I think gets talked about a lot, and it sort of sounds a little bit arbitrary and a little bit, I don't know, just like people are just trying to like mash these two things together, right? To see like it's these two buzz technologies that are trying to be mashed together to see what comes out of it. But yeah, I do think there are definitely, at least in the future, going to be a lot of applications for this. Today, I'm not too sure, if that's the case, I guess, but these guys are looking far into the future, and yeah, it's exciting stuff. So really cool episode. Make sure you go and check that out if you did not get to listen to it yesterday.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add on is that there is code that you can use now, and the very early alpha that they released is that if anyone's interested in this, obviously join the working group, but you can also go to run.ai.btc.dev, and you can have a little very early sneak peek at what's available right now. But yeah, lots to be unlocked in the near future.
Yeah, it makes total sense that that AI would, there's going to be specialized AIs, right? And specialized AIs are going to need to pay other specialized AIs to do certain tasks that these other AIs may be better at. And it totally makes sense that those payments would be made in something like Bitcoin. So, yeah, very, very cool. And yeah, also just very, very cool that we can get potentially some hands-on experience with it on their beta. So, yeah, good stuff. I do want to flip it over to one thing that our team has been working on very quietly for a very long time, and I'm so excited that we finally get to talk about it, which is Granite. I'm so excited to be talking about Granite. Yeah, I mean, where do we even begin? So, so Granite is a new lending platform that is being incubated by Trust Machines. It will eventually kind of decentralize over time, but it is essentially a Bitcoin lending platform where you can lend cbTC. It's going to be powered by cbTC, and it has all of these safeguards in place to essentially make it as safe as possible to lend your Bitcoin without having to worry about things like rehypothecation and custodial wrappers and all the bad things that we kind of usually think about when we think of Bitcoin lending. Because when we think about lending, we think about things like BlockFi and Celsius and all these platforms that no longer exist, right? Because they kind of did it the wrong way. So very exciting stuff. Make sure that you follow Granite BTC. We'll be posting a lot more about it there. Granite.world is the website. But yeah, really, really cool to finally have that out there in the public. I know we've been talking about, Trust Machines is building a DeFi thing for a very long time. So it's very cool that we can now talk about it.
I'm super excited for this one. This is a topic that comes up a lot with friends or like other Bitcoiners that I connect with. And it's just always a topic that comes up about like, how do I, you think about other companies or other institutions that have tried this, and yeah, it's just some horror stories. And the other option is, peer to peer through another Bitcoiner. But I'm really excited to, once this launches, to start talking to people who have, who are going to use Granite and see like how their experience goes, and really just get a lot of that information out there. So I just think like through word of mouth, this is gonna take off.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of people that have been, in the space for a long time, right? We're holding our Bitcoin, and we want to continue holding our Bitcoin. And if some life event happens, or if something comes up where we need liquidity, we don't want to have to sell our Bitcoin, right? So this is that option for, you don't have to sell your Bitcoin. You can get a loan potentially with your Bitcoin, right? The mantra of Granite is, which I love, is just never sell, because ideally you don't want to have to sell your Bitcoin. So I love that two words, right? Never sell is something that really aligns, I think, with Bitcoiners who just want to hold. And yeah, excited to continue talking about it. But it makes a lot of sense, to have something like this.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. I mean, to quote Michael Saylor, it's going up forever, Laura. So why would you want to sell something that's going to go up forever? So that's the hard part. And I know for me, like a lot of people, I've been focusing so much on, the strategy to acquire more and dollar cost average, but I am really underprepared on how to realistically sell, which is why it's so appealing to have something like Granite, where I can use this pristine asset to give myself loan and liquidity if need be. It's the perfect loan. And I'm also seeing more conversations about Bitcoin being used as collateral when buying real estate as well, which I know Ledin is doing something like that. It's only available in Canada, but I think we're just going to be able to see more and more platforms realizing that it's a pristine asset and it can be used as collateral.
Yeah, that's a very good point, and maybe Kate can add on, because I know, well, maybe she has experience with Ledin as a Canadian company, but that's another good point that you bring up, is a lot of traditional companies, if you're looking to take out like a mortgage or like a traditional loan through a bank, right? Even if you have a large amount of Bitcoin, they don't really care. They don't really consider that like a real asset that you can leverage from. Even if you have it, if you have millions of dollars of Bitcoin, they don't care, right? It doesn't matter. It's not a real asset in their eyes, and something that can be sort of taken out. So we need services like this, and we will, especially as time goes on, these services are going to get more and more important as the price of Bitcoin goes up. So yeah, very, very important to have these types of services.
Yeah, totally. So Ledin is like always the one that comes to mind up here in Canada. But there's always like some downfalls that come with it. And I just like looking at Granite, non-custodial bridges, like all of this kind of stuff is it's just like exactly what so many people have been looking for. And it's right there. So very, very excited to see how it plays out.
Yeah, Ledin is doing a lot of things right. I mean, I'll give them credit. Like, they were, I think, one of the first, if not the first, to do proof of reserves, which is kind of a bare minimum, I think, in terms of ensuring that the Bitcoin that they're holding on behalf of you is there and it's where they say it is. So that is all very important. But when you look at, some of the, especially like the no rehypothecation part, right? That is a very unique thing that Granite has to essentially. I don't want to say the word guarantee, but like you can see that Bitcoin is where you put it, and it will stay there, and you can take it out, and it's just it's on chain, right? It's there, sort of locked away in a wallet. So yeah, there's so many things I think that align with what Bitcoiners would want in a lending service. So yeah, it's again very exciting. But maybe moving on to something that's, Sean, a little bit closer to you, especially talking about different property. So the UK this week saw introduced a crypto property bill, and it basically has introduced this bill. Happened on September 11th. That was aimed at recognizing crypto, NFTs, and tokenized real world assets as a new category, which they're calling a quote unquote thing into property law. Which specifically, it's specific. They call it a thing. It's a little more general, but it's like specifically for these digital assets, and it basically allows these assets to be treated with the same legal protections as traditional property, which is very cool.
Yeah, that is a move in the right direction. I have a pet peeve when Bitcoin gets grouped into other cryptocurrencies and NFTs. I mean, it's so completely different. They really need to be separated. But sure, getting people to talk about it and try to pass bills, yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, these are just like really basic frameworks, right? It's like we we know
Right.
that it's property. Like, but it, we talk so much about how we just need these legal frameworks. We need this clarity, right? We need these things to be sort of written into law, rather than just being sort of inferred or um, like just assumed. So it is nice to have it sort of cemented in. Well, I guess we don't have it in the U.S. yet, but at least in the U.K., it's there. That
Yeah.
these are property, they're treated as property, and that's good for Bitcoin, and it's good for all crypto assets, I guess, but it's good for Bitcoin as well.
True, yeah. And real world assets, that is definitely like the flavor of the year right now. I know that's getting a lot of attention. It's like no doubt it's exciting and it's the new buzzword. But it's good to see the UK innovating here. I think one thing that we come to is that a lot of Bitcoiners feel that innovation should be happening in America, and we've been pushing it offshore because of poor regulation or no regulation, no clarity. So we're going to see other people stepping up. So let's go, UK. Put some pressure on us.
Yeah, and for those that maybe don't understand what RWAs or real world assets are, I mean, maybe I'll put you on the spot, Sean. Would you mind explaining what that is for folks?
Sure. Yeah. So I guess you can think about it like taking Tesla stock, for example, and making that a one for one. You make a tokenized on the blockchain asset and you back it up one to one with Tesla. And if you want to trade that on in cryptocurrency on Web3 markets, you can do that instead of having a Schwab account and holding stocks. But it can be anything. We can have the housing market now have its own blockchain, and well, I mean, it should be on Bitcoin anyway, but we're basically tokenized real world assets is exactly that as its name, a token that represents a real world asset. You trade the token as the real world asset gets traded. So it's proof of ownership, proof of transfer.
Good stuff. Yeah, I mean, I think people have been talking about this for a very long time. Like, this is coming, right? It just makes sense that more and more things will be digitized and become RWAs in the future. Even it's sort of tangentially related, but when I was at ETH Denver, they were giving out these shirts, and the shirts had like an NFC chip in the shirt that you could then scan, and then you could have a digital representation of the shirt on the blockchain. So we're seeing, a lot of different experiments, I guess, in how to create these RWAs, and more companies, experimenting with ways to exactly sort of like tokenize these real assets and put them on chain in some way.
Yeah. So what's this bill introducing a third category of a thing in property law? Or is that the same subject? Oh, that's
Yeah,
all.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Very
So
good.
like basically by being one of the first countries to legally recognize digital assets in this manner, UK is positioning itself as a leader in the global cryptocurrency and blockchain technology space. And when I first saw this, I was like, oh well, of course, the US already has this, right? Because the US is just so uh, historically, right, is very focused on like property rights, property law. You have to file all these things with the IRS, so I just assumed that that was already a thing in the US, but it's not legally, I guess. So the UK is kind of the first, it seems like, to do something like this.
Yeah. Well, since we're talking about like different countries, Kate, I would love to check in with you. Like, the state of Canadian blockchain awareness, education, legislation. I know like Plus One, Ledin is doing great things, but what's it like being a Bitcoiner in Canada?
I have to say sometimes it feels lonely. But I think that there is a growing push, and there are some great companies that are doing a lot more awareness. A lot of it has to do around inflation. I think that's such a big topic here in Canada. And so I notice a lot of crypto companies are trying to lean into um, like ways to opt out of inflation. And I know there have been some policy pushes through bigger exchanges to meet with a lot of, like provincial leads, even at the federal level. But it still remains like a really tough topic to bring up with some political parties. So it has been a challenge, I would say, but I think it is growing in the right direction. And I think that is also like a big influence from the States. There is like a really good influence on Canadian culture around crypto.
Nice.
Yeah, I think Canada has been sort of one step ahead, or probably even more steps ahead of the U.S. For some time. They had ETFs much earlier than we did here. And yeah, like I think there's also been a little bit more in terms of regulatory clarity as a result of that. So yeah, it's game theory, right? The countries are now competing for who can provide the most clarity and who can be the most welcoming to this new industry that is growing very rapidly. And yeah, we're just seeing that play out in real time.
Definitely. Well, how about moving on to eToro here? What's the latest there?
Yeah, so this was a pretty big news, I guess more in just kind of crypto news in general, but eToro is a pretty big, was a pretty big platform. I feel like they're in this like cohort of exchanges that kind of came around or got really popular in like 2019, 2020, 2021 sort of era that always, at least, like, I'll just speak like personally, always just felt a little sketchy to me. There's like a few that are still kind of out there that are, US based, that still kind of have that same feeling, or I still get that same feeling from. But, maybe that was slightly warranted because this week eToro recently settled with the SEC for a $1.5 million penalty due to charges that it operated as an unregistered broker and clearing agency in connection with its cryptocurrency offerings. And as part of the settlement, eToro has agreed to significantly limit its cryptocurrency trading options for U.S. customers. So they settled with the SEC, and now they're just really having to significantly scale back their operations in the U.S.
Sorry, guys, if you want to, you're going to have to do everything on Coinbase.
Yeah, I guess it's good news for Coinbase. I didn't check like the stock price of Coinbase to see if it went up from the news, but it certainly does feel like we're getting very centralized in terms of our options in the US for a very solid, trading platform. Of course, we have Coinbase and Kraken and a few others, but I guess we have one less, or maybe half less with eToro now sort of having to scale things back.
Yeah, it reminds me, pour one out for Voyager, Nexo. What were some of the other ones? Like I remember, like right before Celsius blew up, it just seemed like there was a new platform every week. Like trade here, get this APY here. So yeah, when you talk about the cohort of people who didn't make it, yeah, eToro is there.
Yeah. RIP, or I guess partial RIP. I guess they're pretty big outside of the US too, I believe. So it's not like the whole company's shutting down, but just at least in the US, seems like things are not going too well.
But thank you, SEC, for protecting us after it was obvious.
Yeah.
Thank you for driving away innovation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of Coinbase.
Yeah, speaking of Coinbase.
BTC.
Yeah, so we talked about cbBTC a few weeks ago when they first sort of announced it, or first sort of teased it, but it is now live. So congratulations to Coinbase. They have launched cbBTC, which is their wrapped Bitcoin token on both the Ethereum and the Base networks. And despite what you may think, this is good for Bitcoin because it's just bringing more attention to Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin, even though it's Bitcoin on Ethereum and Base, it's Bitcoin. But yeah, the move aims to integrate Bitcoin more seamlessly into their DeFi ecosystem, allowing Bitcoin holders to utilize their assets in Ethereum-based digital or decentralized finance applications. The introduction of cbBTC positions Coinbase to compete with existing wrapped solutions like wBTC, especially following controversies around wBTC's custody, which I don't know if it's happened yet or if it's still planning to happen, but there was a bit of controversy that we talked about with wBTC a few weeks ago as well, with some of the custody being transferred over to Justin Sun under Tron, which not a lot of people were happy with. But it also sort of introduces or gives us sort of a natural segue to start talking a little bit more about SBTC and what a great solution that is going to be, to have a decentralized solution that doesn't rely on a single, custodian or a, centralized group of custodians. It's truly sort of a decentralized open network that is going to be running on Stacks and going to be launching pretty soon after Nakamoto. So very exciting stuff there. But one thing that another sort of follow-up tweet that I saw, and I can give a shout out to Predator for this, is specifically looking at ways that Coinbase, or the controls that Coinbase has over Bitcoin on the network. So when you bridge Bitcoin into cbBTC, Coinbase basically has the ability to freeze or blacklist any addresses that are transacting with cbBTC. And BitGo, while there have been some controversy in terms of the custody, does not have the ability to actually freeze or blacklist addresses in the same way. So you are definitely, when you are wrapping, Bitcoin into these bridges, you are giving up some level of decentralization, and I think that's definitely something that is worth noting.
It's very un-Bitcoin to be wrapped in Ethereum, but I mean, overall, it's good for Bitcoin. A lot of people, for them, simply holding Bitcoin as a store of value, like that's the greatest value for a lot of people. I guess you can do more with it too, but Munib's tweet was great. He was very positive about it, that it's overall a win, and we still will have SBTC that is truly decentralized and open. And I think, I've been around Stacks for so long. There's so much that I love about the Stacks ecosystem, but SBTC is really going to be the greatest thing about the Stacks ecosystem for most people, with the DeFi unlocks, etc.
Yeah, I think the best way that I sort of think about it is, like, for cbBTC and some of these other wrappers, you're getting exposure to lowercase b Bitcoin, but not uppercase b Bitcoin. Where something like, SBTC, I feel like, is slightly more aligned with uppercase b Bitcoin. And we just have a few weeks, I guess, to go, hopefully, for the launch of that. And I agree. I think that is going to be sort of the Trojan horse for Stacks, with people wanting to come in and experiment with it, is this SBTC.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I think obviously we would agree that, building on Bitcoin is the best way to go, but I think this is just like another use case and just another magnet to get more people over here on our ecosystem. So very excited about that.
Absolutely. And I think I added it to the wrong section here, or maybe somebody did. Yeah. So the thing to end on, I guess, I think this came out this morning, right? Is this MicroStrategy news. Sean, maybe you want to talk about that?
I added that one in.
Oh, okay,
I thought that was some good vibes to go into the weekend.
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So MicroStrategy, they've been actively stacking Bitcoin since 2020. They just made another huge move, bought another 18,300 more. I think that was around like 1.1 billion. And now they own a total of 244,800 Bitcoin, which is just huge. And when you add up how much they bought it for, I think it was 9.45 billion, but now that's worth over 15. So it's just insane. obviously they have a very aggressive strategy as an institution, and they're clearly the front runner in Bitcoin adoption for large institutions. But I just always love to see this, and like if nothing else, it just produces some top tier Bitcoin memes for us.
Yeah, I mean that war chest is gigantic. I think it's always funny to more on the short term than the long term. Obviously, long term, Bitcoin has gone up since MicroStrategy first started buying it. But it's always very interesting that it feels like short term they always buy at the wrong times. Like like the Bitcoin price has gone up a lot today, and then they buy it. Uh, I feel like that happens pretty often with them.
It's hard for a huge company to move quickly and try to like buy the dip. I mean, it's hard enough for us to buy the dip, right? But
Yeah.
case in point that over time, it's always going to work. And what's so good about this is Michael Saylor is one of the best, most well-spoken, articulate Bitcoin advocates and educators out there. So when he's famous and he gets to go on these media tours talking about his strategy and then educating people on Bitcoin at the same time. So yeah, huge Michael Saylor fan. he's good for Bitcoin.
Second that.
Certainly. Well, we have a lot to look forward to next week. We didn't talk about it yet, but the BNS V2 migration or the airdrop is scheduled to happen next week on the 19th. So for anybody that is holding a BNS name, and that is any BNS name, so it could be .btc, .id, any of the rider handles, any of the BNS names that are out there will be airdropped a equivalent BNS V2 name, and that is going to happen on the 19th. So that means that BNS V2 is going live on the 19th, which is very exciting. For those that aren't familiar with BNS, it is basically it's a Bitcoin name system. You might be familiar with ENS that's on Ethereum, but BNS actually predates ENS. It currently is running on Stacks as a smart contract, but it has been on Bitcoin for a very long time. When you look back to, as old as things like Namecoin is where it originally came from. So very, very long history, and very cool that every BNS holder is, getting this airdropped to them for free. They don't have to pay anything. They don't have to do anything. It's just going to show up in your wallet on the 19th. And, you can use BNS for very simple things. In Lether, for example, rather than sharing my Bitcoin address or my Stacks address, I can just share with you my .btc name, and you can use that for payments. So you don't have to remember or type in a very long Bitcoin or Stacks address. You can just use a human readable BNS name. But it's also going to open up a lot of new opportunities for identity. We have another Trust Machines product, which is .locker, that's going to be dependent on BNS V2 going live. And especially as we look into, a couple more weeks down the road with Stacks Nakamoto going live, making payments a lot faster and a lot easier and a lot cheaper. It's just a really great time to have a BNS name. So really cool that is happening next week. It's been something, again, that's been in the works for a very long time. It feels like, well, Stacks has been doing a really good job of every day making sure that there's a really exciting announcement. Yesterday's announcement was the launch of Granite, but there's been just so many exciting announcements almost every day that have been happening sort of in anticipation of this Nakamoto upgrade. So it is a good time to get familiar with the Stacks ecosystem because there's just so much happening on the network right now.
Very, very exciting. So you're telling me it's time to get my BNS name up and launched?
Well, it might actually not now. Actually, you probably want to wait.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, everything right now sort of. So a snapshot was taken the other day, and basically once that snapshot was taken, all of the most of the BNS services sort of were put into maintenance mode. So you can't actually. Well, you probably could, but it's harder to register a BNS name right now because they want to be able to create the snapshot and have it be clean. everything like that. But once the 19th rolls around, yes, you'll be able to register a BNS v2 name and start using it across all the different services very soon. So very exciting stuff.
Awesome.
Sean, do we have a preview of Leather Lounge next week? Do we know who's going to be joining?
Oh, do we? I can't wait. Well, every week, most weeks, I play a little recording from Brett from Gamma.io. He is their head of growth, and he lives in Australia. So it's like 5 a.m. for him, something like that, when we go live. So he always sends me a recording. But next week, we get to hear from Gamma, full Gamma dedicated show, because it's going to be a big week for Gamma next week. So yeah, Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern, we're going to get Nick and a couple other folks from Gamma.
Yeah, very exciting. I know they have a really big announcement coming very soon, and I think our show is sort of timed around that. Really cool stuff that's going to be happening over at Gamma. As we know, they have been on, or they were on the Stacks network for a very long time, and they were one of the first to support ordinals when ordinals came out last year. And they just have some really, really exciting stuff coming soon. So really looking forward to that conversation. Nick and Sarah are great, and Brett is, of course, amazing. So yeah, looking forward to hearing from them. It's going to be a great show.
Indeed. Well, happy Friday, Brandon. Thanks for bringing us all the good things on Bitcoin. And you too, Kate.
Same to you guys. Hope
Yeah.
you all have a good weekend.
Cool. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I see Kabi down there. We see Good Kitty down there, Shaylee, lots of other folks that have been popping in and out. So thank you so much for listening in. We will see you next week, and have a good weekend, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. We record Good for Bitcoin live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time on X. Please follow us at Trust Machines Co. if you would like to listen and engage with us live. Visit us at trustmachines.co for all the latest Bitcoin news. We'll see you next week.